till I get to.
Yeah, what you were asking, should you pass on now? Well, it's just the two of us, but Mayor and Steve, is Laura here too? Is this, I guess I can grab one, can't I? Yeah. And this is on the recycling of solar equipment.
Yeah, and this is. First year on. They started doing that.
All right, thank you.
So,
See,
hey, boss wants to.
okay.
So you can present this as a copy of
I
your
just,
suggestion, round table.
I sent it. He's also very much Laura. At least everything's got.
Yeah. I was just gonna suggest you make it under the round table, just tell everybody.
Hey, guys, how are
How
you?
you doing?
Good, how are you?
We're good.
Good.
After our last conversation, or while you guys were talking about solar panels and all that other stuff, in the morning I would meet my cereal
Oh, yeah.
closer. I stumbled across this on the internet, and then as I got to digging into it further, what was interesting is there's a company that is actually does the recycling of them after they start in their useful life. So Alicia suggested that I just provide it for you guys, and then if it came up when it was time to talk about it or not. But I thought maybe it's kind of an interesting thought.
Yeah.
When you're getting deeply into putting up a lot of solar panels. Someday.
Hey, Dave, I'm real interested in that. If you could give Alyssa your sources so she could, mail it out to the group. I mean, that would be great.
I actually emailed it to Alicia, so she's got
Okay, great.
both documents, so she can send it out.
Yeah, we'll make sure everybody gets a copy of it. So let's see who we got here. We kind of,
in there.
yeah, we kind of stressed that, not knowing how many people might, because there was a press release, if you show up, we kind of emphasize, certainly feel welcome to sit somewhere else and zoom in on it. So I see we have Tyler, we got Marty. We'll get started here in a few minutes.
Josue, can you hear us okay? Josue said that she didn't.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Great.
I kind of,
Hi, Tyler. Hi, Woody. John, Marty.
Hi, how are you guys?
We're good. Hear you loud and clear.
Great.
so we're kind of also, Laura's on her way. We're still gonna be finished by 5:15, by the way. We're gonna hold that. Are we gonna look at having that nuclear group? Somebody come in and give a presentation. You see that email?
Yeah,
No, I saw that. I didn't know what,
Yeah, nuclear free.
there wasn't,
oh, Mike Wenzel, yeah.
there wasn't any meeting or anything scheduled, was there?
No, it's
He
just
wants
that
to
they
do a
offered it.
they want to do a presentation, I think, to city council,
To
to
give
a work
Mhm.
session, yeah,
Give an educational meeting.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Did they actually present it to city council?
They have not, they have not yet. I think they were reaching about getting on the agenda here, Ken.
Okay.
Just share screen.
Because I think that's some, they had a town hall a couple of weeks ago, and they had some exceptional speakers in there from all around the country, some experts. One of them was Arjun Makajani, and he runs an institute in the New England area. I think it's Maryland, Institute for Energy and Environment Research. He has some really good ideas and kind of presents the future of energy, what the energy policy ought to be. I would like to invite him into this meeting at some point in time. So that's one of the things I wanted to talk about when we get to business. Okay.
Okay, all right. Well, listen, everybody, thanks for joining us. We are anticipating that possibly the Pueblo chieftain might zoom in here sometime or another.
He's here.
Oh, is he?
Yep. Mr. Perez.
Oh, okay. Welcome, chieftain, Mr. Perez.
Thank you.
And but we didn't hear any confirmation from any other of the electronic media. So at this point in time, I would, and again, for those of you that are not used to being part of this meeting, that we're meeting once a month, the mayor activated this group a little over a year ago, and we've been meeting for the first half a year. We met almost twice a month to try to get things rolling. And kind of the overall goal and the mission is to complement City Council a number of years ago had stated that we were hoping to have the city of Pueblo be 100% renewable by 2035. And that's not unique to this community. That's kind of a common benchmark for a lot of places around the country and around the world. So anyhow, we've been really fortunate to have good participation. We have some very bright individuals that are part of this group that represent currently working for utilities, past employment with utilities, just private citizens that have a lot of interest in renewable energy. And so we've been really fortunate to have that kind of knowledge be a part of this group. In the last maybe 3-4 months, we've been meeting just once a month, and we've tried to have guests be part of the presentations, inviting people, and even some of our committee members actually have been presenters. So today, actually, we do have another one of our committee members, one of our colleagues, Laura Getz, who is going to be talking about financial benefits to individuals that are doing renewable energy, whether it be with vehicles in their house or whatever. And but today I also want to, it's an honor to introduce our mayor, Mayor Gradishar, that he's going to start the meeting off. So I'm going to turn it over to our mayor.
Well, Steve, thanks. It's a pleasure to be with everybody here this afternoon. Let me begin by thanking you for all the work that you've done over the last year in terms of trying to help organize and coordinate and investigate these issues that the community is being faced with. I periodically review the minutes. Alyssa clues me in on what's going on, and I think you've had some good discussions. And I just wanted to update you a little bit about where the city's at. Steve mentioned the 2035 goal for renewable energy. You know, we've had meetings, and I see Andrew Hayes on the line here. I think he's been attending some of your meetings, but the city's really making a commitment and trying to drive towards electrifying our fleet. We started out with the police department. We got a couple of Mach-E's, and I think we're ordering 20 more when they come out in 2023, maybe. Black Hills has been a fantastic partner on that effort. They are working on installing the infrastructure, the charging infrastructure for that. They're getting a series of grants and things like that, but those kind of things will be done without without cost to the city. We're also working on grants, obviously, and we've received some grants for some chargers for the community. Placing, you know, a high-level charger out at the airport and some other ones down here downtown. It's really sort of an exciting time, I think, for us to be moving forward. We run into some things about, you know, the Parks Department wanted a trash truck, and I said, well, let's look at an electric trash truck, and it's $400,000, and it's sort of jerry rigged with the battery up on top, kind of thing. And I said, okay. that we're probably gonna pass on that one, but I sort of made it clear to the departments that I want them to consider electric vehicles before internal combustion vehicles, and I need to have a good reason why we're not getting electric in that case. And including, I think we got an electric street sweeper that we're investigating. I saw one at the CML conference last year and said, yeah, this is the kind of thing we need to have here. So working on that, continuing to push from the city. Also been in touch with Ken. We've been reached out to by Drive Clean Colorado that wants to put in a grant to help cities prepare strategic plans for charging station and electrification. They're looking for community-based organizations that would be willing to partner with them to get input from the community and things like that. So I reached out to Ken and the Renewable Energy Owners Association to see if they'd have an interest in partnering with them if they get the grant. So we're hopeful that some of that will come through. Black Hills Energy is obviously in the middle of a energy resource plan, electric resource plan. I filed answer testimony in that today, or I signed the document today. I don't know when it's going to be filed, but the city's been a party to that. And generally we're supportive of the plan, but we're conscious of what it could cost the residents. And we want to make sure that as we move forward, the cost of the residents and the community are minimized. And that's sort of the gist of my testimony there. And I see, and I think it's great that Laura's going to present on the infrastructure plan and the Inflation Reduction Act, because those are paying immediate benefits for the city right now. CS Winds, who manufactures wind towers, as soon as that bill passed, reached out to me and said, hey, we're going to double our capacity here, and we could perhaps triple our workforce, and we want to be able to do this quickly, and we want to work with you to do it quickly. And I think they're on course to do that. We put together a task force. They put together a task force to try to make sure that we can expedite this process for them, gone so far as to have a meeting with the governor and say, Governor, Colorado Department of Health and Environment has to issue an air quality permit for this new paint shop that they're going to put in. And usually that's a 24-month process, which would be intolerable in these conditions. And the governor assured me Sunday when he was in town that he's talked to CDPHE, and if CS Winds get that application filed, they think they can have it reviewed by March and get them down the road so that they can, proceed with that expansion there. Those are good paying jobs in the renewable energy industry, and, just pretty exciting times. So I think there's a lot of those kind of incentives in there. Those are built in America wind towers. Those are renewable energy wind towers. Our customers are getting credits as a result of this Infrastructure Act. So I think we're only beginning to see what the possibilities are with these federal acts, but the results, I think, are immediate and they'll be long lasting, I think. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say, Laura, based on your research. And I don't want to take any more of your time. Just it's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon, and rest assured we're moving forward and we're looking for advice and information from you guys to make sure we're on track to be 100% renewable by 2035. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Anybody have any questions, brief questions?
At this time, no. I don't, not right now.
Okay, all right, great. All right, well, listen, we'll move on. And for those of you that have been part of our committee, she needs no introduction, Laura Getz. She used to work for Pueblo County and now I think runs San Isabel. I'm not sure what her job is there, but I think she pretty much runs the place. And is that true or false?
It's false.
That's false. Okay. All right. She probably doesn't want that to get back again. So anyhow, everybody stay tuned and hang in there. And Laura, we're really pleased to have you to present this today.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me a little bit of time here. And I want to preface this with, I am not an expert in the Inflation Reduction Act. I've just been working in this space. And I'm going to highlight a very small part of this act. There's so much depth to it. And so many stakeholders who benefit from it, that I'm going to really focus on our residences and our residents and our business community in particular, and some of the immediate impacts they'll be seeing from this. And I really appreciate those updates from you, Mayor. And I'm excited that you're working with Drive Clean Colorado. They hope to hold a kind of Pueblo, Southern Colorado specific event here in February, which I think will be excellent for our folks.
Yeah.
Because there are a series of new programs targeted at commercial vehicles like our street sweepers and some of those trucks that are much more expensive to fund. And so that might be the key for us moving forward. So it'll be great. Okay, so just as an overview, the Inflation Reduction Act, it appropriated $369 billion for energy and climate initiatives. There was a lot more in this. There was a huge healthcare component, but we're just going to focus on the energy and climate specific piece of this. So basically, the intention was to spur rapid growth in the clean energy economy, reduce emissions, and do that through a number of different mechanisms, one of which was consumer incentives with tax credits and rebates. And then a key addition to this was strong equity provisions. And so in a lot of this, you see funding opportunities made available with priority given to underserved and environmental justice communities, of which Pueblo is often considered one. So I'll start with the high efficiency electric home rebate program. So this is a point of sale consumer rebate for low and moderate income households. And I'll get into what constitutes low and moderate income in a minute. But this offers up to $14,000 per household for the installation of a number of energy efficiency and renewable energy related measures. It covers the installation and labor costs, as well as just the initial purchase cost of the equipment. So keep in mind, this is targeted at low and moderate income. And these are folks who don't often get to take advantage of tax credits, which is why this was created. And so for those who are considered low income, that would be earning less than 80% of your, basically of your median income in your community. If they're only earning 80% of that sort of median, this can cover up to 100% of their electrification projects in their home. And renters are eligible for this, I will add that. It can cover up to 50% of the cost for those who are moderate income, which is means their household is earning between 80% and 150% of kind of that median income in the community. It can also include multifamily buildings, as long as 50% of the tenants in those buildings meet this low to moderate income threshold. And then it incentivizes contractors to go after low and moderate income projects by awarding them up to $500 per project. So it's kind of a comprehensive approach at making sure that nobody is left behind with these funding opportunities, and really trying to get at residential electrification among low and moderate income populations. So you can see on the right, we've got some of the different rebate levels that are available. So things like a heat pump, which would often replace your gas furnace HVAC system, you can get up to $8,000 for that, which is a very significant amount of money. Heat pump water heaters, which are the most efficient water heaters you can purchase today. All electric water heaters, electric stoves, clothes dryers. And then this is a really novel approach as well. You can upgrade your electrical panel. As long as it's tied to one of these projects, you can get up to $4,000 for upgrading your electrical service. And that has been considered a big barrier to whole home electrification, because often we have a lot of old homes. It costs a lot of money to upgrade your electrical service. And so that has not gone without notice in this bill, and money has been allocated towards electrical upgrades.
And renters can get those kind of,
Yes, they can. And so one of the big things to note with this program is that we do not know how how people will be qualified for it. The states are given money to implement this. And so the Colorado Energy Office, we've been to a lot of events lately where people are asking them, how are you gonna do this? And they're like,
Yeah.
well, we're working on it. And they're gonna figure it out. We have a really robust Colorado Energy Office. And so they're still determining whether or not they'll maybe hire someone. They think they're gonna hire someone to kind of coordinate this, but there might be a lot of contracting with organizations who already income qualify folks. So that is yet to be determined, but by early to mid next year, I think we'll start to see some answers from them about the precise pathway for how folks can obtain these rebates.
So let me ask a quick question, and I probably you prefer to just get the presentation done, but when we talk about renters, are we talking of, let's say I'm a landlord and I have 10 rentals. Can the renters that are in my houses, apartments, they can apply for this?
Yes, if they meet that.
So
income.
indirectly, even a property owner that has rentals could benefit from it for their properties.
It could, or that person could, yes. Yeah, it is, we've gotten to the point where with renters that there are such large populations of renters who are often an underserved population that it is not enough to just try and make a business case for the landlord to often make those upgrades.
Well, they pay utilities usually with renters.
They do, they do. Yeah, and so there are a number of different mechanisms being developed to make that as affordable as possible for renters. We're working in concert with the Colorado Clean Energy Fund to do some on-bill financing and to help determine which upgrades specifically will be least impactful to the bill, but make the biggest difference, in terms of home comfort and efficiency. And so lots of programs are being developed right now. I think it'll be an exciting time for low to moderate income electrification. And of course, we can't forget that we still have the Pueblo County Weatherization Office, which is serving our low income population with weatherization projects. They're currently able to get to a little over 200 homes a year, which of course is not enough, but they are receiving a huge new influx of money starting this year to do more upgrades than they've ever done before in low-income homes through the weatherization program, including heat pumps, electric water heaters. And so their biggest challenge will be workforce development. They cannot hire enough people fast enough and get them trained up fast enough to really be deploying these funds in the field in people's homes. So we can't forget about that.
Laura, do we know what the average median income is here in Pueblo? What that would be?
Is it 40 something per family?
I thought it was, it's confusing. The last time I looked, it was like 50. But a lot of them use median and some use average. So I think it's closer to 50.
I know the county is more than the city is. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Woody. I just looked that up and it says 54,537.
Is that for the city?
Pueblo County 65, so the city must be 54,
Okay.
if I'm reading it right.
No, I should have had
Let
it.
me interject a little bit here, Laura, too. I just attended a meeting yesterday, and it was by a think tank group out of I think the DC area, and they were talking about they're called RFF, Resources for the Future, Understanding. And one thing they said is, you don't call this the IRA, you call it IRA. Okay, I don't know if that's true or not. But they define energy communities, and if you get labeled an energy community, and I think Pueblo will qualify, you can get 10% more on things versus the non-energy communities. Okay, so for example, the ITC that for putting solar or projects like that in is 30%. That would mean that would go up to 40%. I mean, that's gigantic. So if you're a business looking to find a home, to manufacture this stuff, it's a gigantic incentive, right? So I think we need to pursue that energy community. And they said that you'll qualify through the U.S. Treasury. Now, the Colorado Energy Office may have a way to do that too. So we ought to just be aware of that.
Mhm. Thank you, Ken. And I heard about that for larger scale projects like community solar and some of those. I wasn't sure if that applied to individuals, residences, if that. bumped
Yeah,
that up.
I don't know, I mean, if you're in that area and you're doing a project, right? I don't know if that would be individuals, but it's probably more business oriented. But it would be a gigantic benefit, to attract companies, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So Ken, yeah, and again, for those of you that are not part of this, usually it's pretty informal. I just want to make sure that Laura gets a chance, and as long as we're out of here by 5:15, I don't care how many questions you have.
I just have one fast one for you. Like first, with San Isabel has also matching rebates, heat pump, and then also both the hot water heater and furnace. Would you actually be able to double up then with San Isabel, give me $500 and then I get, $1,000? Good.
Yes, exactly.
Wow,
And thank you for that question.
It's
So
unbelievable.
you can stack these. We also have incentives, tax incentives coming from the state of Colorado. And so for a heat pump, you could get this incentive. You could layer on the state tax incentive. You could layer on the utilities rebate, and you could significantly slash the cost of that. There has never been a better time to do a home renovation project, particularly on your major appliances and systems.
So who can advise a household that they would know that they could do all that? Is there somebody in Pueblo that will do that?
Yes, so I can let John speak to Black Hills.
Okay.
Black Hills does have an energy auditing,
Okay.
home energy auditing program, and I would advise the residents of Pueblo to go through that program and get their home formally assessed by someone.
So
and
that
get a
would be a good thing for the newspaper to be able to share.
Yes.
I'm just gonna bring that up when we get to the committees too. The committees, I'm really gonna recommend that one of the committees research that, because this is massive. And
Yeah.
I was gonna mention later, but real fast, every time I approach the state or the, any of these agencies, I always hear, geez, we wish lower southern Colorado would take more advantage of these things. These are massive, and for us to get to our goal, I told you, I said, we can get there right now. Just gotta get the gas out of this house. They're pretty much saying, most of these rentals and low-income people, they got the money now. We can get, if we jump on that horse first, we can get, thousands of homes on this and get halfway to our thing, and the money's there. Tomorrow, it may not be there.
Yeah. And so this is expected to be available more or less for the next 10 years. So there is time. And a lot of the incentives I'll cover in the next slide here. You can go after these tax credits each year. So you can pursue $3,200 per year in tax credits per year. So there's a lot of leeway in terms of how you phase your projects too. I'll skip it, but yes, so residential energy efficiency tax credits. This would be for folks who are not going to meet that low and moderate income category. So those who have a tax burden who can really benefit from tax incentives. You're going to see this has always existed, but it is significantly increased from what it had been. So we're now up to 30% tax credit for residential efficiency and electrification upgrades, up to $3,200 per year. This is going to include some of the things you're seeing in the table on the right: heat pumps and heat pump water heaters, up to $2,000. Again, electrical panel. They're going to throw in $600 for those upgrades if it's done in conjunction with a heat pump or a heat pump water heater. There's installation, doors, windows, the energy audit itself, which is great because Black Hills, they have different, last I knew, again, I'll let John correct me, but there were different levels of energy audits you could get through Black Hills. The highest one was a blower door, the most comprehensive, which I always highly recommend. But it did require you to spend some money on it. Here, you could receive $150 towards that energy audit, which would make it a little bit more worth going after the expensive audit. So again, when it comes to tax credits and what you're eligible for, always consult a tax professional to develop, to determine your eligibility. But these are quite significant compared to what they had been in the past. So we'll move on to the residential clean energy tax credit. So this begins immediately. These other incentives are beginning in 2023, starting January 2023. This begins, as soon as the bill is passed, basically. And it's a 30% tax credit for rooftop solar. This now includes battery storage and geothermal heating. 30% is what it had been at. It is steadily stepped down for the original bill that brought the solar tax credit into being. So this has bumped it back up to 30, and it's expected to stay there for another 10 years. And again, Tyler, you can correct me on any of this in terms of solar.
I think this tax credit's good through 2034 at 30%.
Okay, so 12 years.
Is this commercial and residential?
Yes, it is commercial and residential. And so again, I'm not touching on bigger community solar projects. There's a whole nother host of benefits tied to community solar projects and extra incentives. If you are using union labor, prevailing wages, there are lots of workforce
So Davis-Bacon
pieces. Yeah, that have been thrown in there to kind of boost the incentives that you would see on those types of projects. And then electric vehicles specifically, so you can receive, they basically maintain the federal tax credit for EVs at $7,500, but now they've thrown in an ability to collect $4,000 in incentives for used EVs. Things got a little bit tricky towards right before this bill was passed. And some provisions were thrown in that makes this tax credit dependent upon basically the make and model, because it's going to depend upon where they've manufactured it, where they've mined some of the materials, where they've assembled it. That gets tricky. It's hard to know exactly where all those pieces were sourced. And so at the end, I've got a link that helps you look up some vehicle information to determine which makes and models are eligible for this per these requirements. But we are seeing a sudden rush to open new plants in the US to allow some of these manufacturers of EVs to qualify for these credits, because they know it's going to be essential to check those sourcing boxes, to compete in the EV market. It also removes that 200,000 manufacturer cap. So you might have heard like Tesla, for example, you no longer get the tax credit.
General Motors.
Right,
last
or
year,
General Motors.
yeah.
Yes, exactly. With the Chevy, and the Chevys had hit that cap as well, I believe. And so that is now gone. Tesla is once again eligible for this. GM, Chevy, anyone who had hit that cap, now eligible again. Beginning 2024, they're looking at trying to make a point of sale rebate available. So when you purchase that car, you'll immediately get that rebate. And that's kind of, again, a key tool to allow low and moderate income folks who can't wait around for that credit to come back to them, can't afford that upfront cost, to make it more affordable to, for them to go after these vehicles. There are certain income caps tied to EVs now, but they are relatively high. So most folks are going to be qualifying for these tax credits. And then for charging infrastructure, the tax credit covers 30% of the cost of hardware and installation, up to $1,000. And so we see that for residential, and I believe it's a little bit higher for commercial even. And between Black Hills and San Isabel, we have a lot of additional rebates that we throw on top of that for charging infrastructure. Okay, so this, we don't have to go into detail here, but this is to say that there are a lot of provisions for our contractors, because this work needs to be done by our local trade community, by our contractors, our electricians, our plumbers, our HVAC professionals. They're going, because so much of this is targeted at things like heat pumps, that's kind of a new technology. So heat pumps, heat pump manufacturers, there's a lot of training being directed at our contracting community to make sure that they are up to speed and to incentivize them to really help sell these kinds of technologies, because most people call their HVAC technician when their furnace dies, and they just want a quick 1-for-1 replacement. But if we have our contractors filling this educational role about what it would mean to bring a heat pump into your home, and the different incentives available to you, that's going to be a game changer in the number of people who start retrofitting their homes with heat pumps over gas-powered or propane-powered equipment. Let's get through that. And then quickly for commercial, there is a tax deduction called 179D that has always existed for commercial buildings, but it has been $1.80 per square foot. So this deduction has been significantly increased. Businesses can now see $5 per square foot in tax deduction if they meet the highest level of energy savings, and then a couple different workforce provisions around prevailing wages and some apprenticeship requirements.
Is this envelope stuff also, or just motors and?
Yep.
So envelopes.
Yes, this includes all the big stuff. A really big piece of this is that tax exempt entities like the local government, SRDA, all of our nonprofit organizations, churches, schools, they are now eligible for this deduction. So that's a big piece of the IRA, is that nonprofits are now eligible for solar deduction or for solar tax credits. Again, they're not paying those taxes, but there's now a mechanism for them to get a deduction as though they're paying those taxes. So as the city pursues an energy performance contract, this could be a significant deduction in that overall cost. So that's huge.
Yeah, that's huge, huge.
It's huge.
Oh, because, yeah, we don't pay taxes.
Exactly. But you can claim it now as though you do. And so basically it's going to be, and I can't explain to you exactly how that mechanism works.
That's gonna have to be explained to me a little way. Somebody have to write us a check or something, because we don't,
Basically, yes, someone's going to write you a check.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't we pay state taxes?
Hmm?
Don't we pay state taxes? Some of this tax that we get in from customers that pay things, don't we give that back to the state?
No, we don't pay state taxes or federal taxes.
And
The city doesn't.
but I mean, if I pay over here, that taxes, that goes automatic to the state. It doesn't go to us.
Right. So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that works,
Yeah, it's
because
kind of,
that was one of the difficulties that the city had about owning its own solar projects. It was more expensive because nobody was getting that rebate.
Exactly.
So if now somehow that's been changed, that sort of changes my thinking about it a little bit.
Yes, it's extremely significant for large solar projects.
This is gonna mean a lot in assessing, how we go to 100% renewables for governments, for other, government entities. I think this is gigantic.
It is. And there's a valid concern out there for, okay, we've got all these tax deductions and rebates. Aren't folks just going to start upping the cost of these items because they know these rebates are available? it's a valid concern. You know, it's hard to know exactly how the market's going to respond to this. And, you know, we'll remain hopeful that it's not abused and that there's enough competition to keep prices, you know, at the prevailing market rate without, you know, significant markup because of these opportunities. But
That's you know, that's a good perspective, Laura. It's a supply and demand type thing, right? I mean, it may mean like a company like Trane, for example, not to say that they would do this, but you know, maybe they would expand their factories to, you know, compensate for the demand, right? So hopefully it doesn't create a bunch of inflationary things.
Can I chime in on this just for a second?
yeah, I figured you'd have something good to add here, Tyler.
So part of the echo too, but so the tax credits and tax incentives, they've always been there for the city and for not-for-profit projects. Usually what ends up happening with those is we can, you know, find a tax beneficiary who can benefit from those programs. And usually they're the ones who end up stroking the check back to the city or to the not-for-profit organization for those benefits. It's called being a solar tax equity partner.
Yeah, but they usually retain a portion of that.
They retain the rights to, right. And it does, that caveat has always come with some sort of lease aspect, but essentially the lease is mere paperwork, but at the same time, those benefits are utilized. So they've always existed. So I know, you know, just the thoughts of, you know, is pricing going up or is, you know, things going to be inflated because the benefits are now larger. You know, I only foresee prices going up as manufacturers raise cost of supplies. Otherwise, you know, the price has come down quite a bit over the last 5 years. But these essentially have always existed. But the 179D that allows not-for-profits and some not-for-profits need it. To be able to deduct, to be able to qualify for not-for-profit status. So allowing them to use that, allow them to take a part of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents.
Yes, and so I guess just the final thing I'd add for commercial is to take advantage of these deductions. You know, this is mostly thinking in terms of our small businesses who could really benefit from this, but who can't afford maybe a large engineering firm who conducts audits at a pretty high cost just because they have a lot of overhead. This energy assessment to qualify for the tax credit requires certification by a professional engineer, and it requires them to use a sort of Department of Energy approved modeling software. That is a resource that we're really lacking in Pueblo. Most of it lives up in Denver. And so we don't see, that's something we're going to have to explore is how do we get that resource in our community or cultivate it so that we can see a lot of those small and mid-sized businesses take advantage of this tax credit without, you know, spending thousands of dollars on the energy auditor to qualify them. Okay, so here are just a few resources. Rewiring America has some excellent fact sheets. And a lot of those tables I pulled came from their website. They are a fabulous resource. They have a lot of calculators where you can plug in your income and your billing information, and it can show you what you're eligible for. The White House's Clean Energy website also has some tools like that, and it really lays out, you know, the specifics of everything you might want to pursue in your home and you know what kind of rebates you could get for that or tax credits. And then this last longer link, it helps you understand which vehicle makes and models could get you up to that full 7,500 tax credit based on how it's assembled, where the parts are coming from. So those are just a few of many, many, many resources out there that I'll leave you with. And again, just skimming the surface of what's in the IRA right now, or the IRA, as we should say. And I'm happy for anyone else to add, things that they've learned about it as you move forward, because again, I am not your sole expert on this, and I'm not a tax professional. So that's just a few things to start looking into, and to encourage our residents to really pursue this, mostly starting next year. Our contractors are already swamped with more projects than they can handle. And so one of the things we might look into is how do we really start cultivating our workforce that can support our residents taking advantage of this. Apprenticeship models. I'd like to start having a lot more conversations with our contracting community to see what they need in terms of workforce development, but helping them with that pipeline. We're seeing more and more grant opportunities come down, especially from Department of Energy, trying to support local workforce initiatives. And again, we check a lot of the boxes for an environmental justice community. We fall under the Justice 40 community branch that gives us a lot of preference in applications. And so if we have a good project with the right community partners involved, we can be very competitive.
You probably know this already. PCC has a training program. They work with Vestas up front before the hiring or there. And they actually have a whole department unless they've changed it. And that would be a perfect one to encourage that, to get the local contract, some sort of classes that could be funded hopefully through some of this.
So, excuse me, quick question for the self-home improvement men and women. Do they have to have licensed contractors in order to benefit from this, to do the installations?
They do.
So in other words, Steve can't do it on his own. He couldn't anyways, but for sure, somebody that is handy still has to have a license.
Yes.
Contractor. Okay, I think that's important.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, that's the big thing. And it is kind of hard to go back to what you were talking about earlier. Because like all our health insurance is a good example.
Yeah.
If you and I go to the hospital, and we got health insurance, they charge us one thing. If I'm a poor person that can barely afford anything, I get charged a different amount, so they take advantage of the ones that are doing that. So that's what you were bringing up earlier. We have to, overlook that. And you've seen on the federal level with some of the people that got incentives for the coronavirus and stuff, their governments come back and say, wait a minute, you abused this. So there's going to have to be something probably through the state, maybe even the city as an ordinance that it could be something just said real simple, that contractors that are doing this, the city will hold them responsible through ordinance so and we have the right to get our money back. I'm making this up kind of, but it may be, it's kind of like, I have a dog at a sign on my house. It just might be a good reminder for them to do the right thing. Because you're going to be the watchdog.
So, John, do you have anything you wanted to add since your name was being thrown around?
Thanks for asking, Steve. As you all know, I am not the energy efficiency expert. We do have a person on our staff, Patty Olenek, who really is the manager of those programs, and so I would defer to her. I know that you do have members of the press on, so if they want to get in contact with me, I can get them in contact with Patty, and I can share my my phone number here in the chat.
Okay, great.
Well, it looks like Alyssa threw us the U.S. Census's median income. So 42,902.
Yeah.
That would be our median.
So that was,
Thanks to Alyssa.
yeah, we looked that up real quick too. So it's not all that, it's pretty low income when you look at the scheme of things.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it is.
So,
Yeah, so
anyone-
I just wanted to kind of add a perspective, right? With the infrastructure bill and this IRA bill, there's a lot of opportunity for communities. This is going to be doled out through the state and all that, but we need to find out how that's going to happen. And I think this, really is going to, is at least a full-time position for somebody to kind of manage all this stuff. I know, the city's looking at getting somebody in a position like that. I would say the payback is going to be great because if we don't take advantage of opportunities, shame on us. So.
Look, Steve,
Go ahead.
let me just add, Ken, that, yeah, the city's got a full-time grant writer. We had one before these bills passed, and she has immersed herself in this, but this is like drinking from a fire hose. And the state has recognized that. The Colorado Department of Local Affairs is making some money available to PACOGs, to councils of government around the state, recognizing that, there are 200 or 300 programs that somebody's going to have to get familiar with in order to help communities apply for these grants and know where the bones are buried, so to speak, so that they can, dig into that. And the city and county are cooperating right now, and we're going to get probably funding from Department of Local Affairs to fund a position, probably be out of the city's office somehow. The city sort of handles PACOG for the city employees, I guess, basically for planning purposes. The county has some employees as well, but we think it ought to be probably with a grant writer. And part of that position would be not just to do work for the city or the county, but for all these little towns like Boone and Rye and all these towns that Beulah that might qualify for some stuff, but they don't have the capacity to write grants or anything like that. But at least this individual would sort of be available to tell them what money is available in what pots. So it's pretty exciting, but everybody recognizes that there's just a myriad of so much information out there that it's hard to get your hands around it.
So is this a position that we were hoping that the city would be able to provide, that would be also be assigned to work with the group too, that you're talking about?
No.
Okay, so that's above and beyond.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Anybody else? Don't be shy. We got the mayor here for a few more minutes.
I had a question. I think it might be for Laura regarding the looks like, as I sit through my notes here, the commercial deduction. Since there's a requirement for certification by pro engineer, but it sounds like that's not readily available for businesses here in Pueblo. Has there been any solutions floated to help these businesses with this process and get that certification? Because obviously without that, it makes it much tougher to get it anyway.
That's a great question. And if anyone knows engineers actively working in our community, I'd love to connect with them and understand what their skill sets are and if this might fit into the scope of work they can provide to folks. I have been working with Brandis at All Phase Environmental on a rural small business energy auditing program. We just received money from the USDA to stand up that program. Unfortunately, because the city isn't rural, it doesn't qualify for that, but we're very actively looking at how after we provide assessments for those businesses, we can then qualify them for this tax credit among some other incentives. The auditors we have working with them are very skilled, but they're not engineers and they're not necessarily using these specific software tools. And so one of my thoughts was, can we contract with a qualified third-party engineer to review the assessment that they've done and kind of give it the official stamp of approval for tax purposes? Not entirely sure how that would work. This is all still very new, but would love to cultivate, our engineering community and anyone who might be qualified to do that, because we have so many businesses that could stand to benefit from it. And I'm on the board of a couple nonprofits that, I'd love to help go after the money too. So I think we need to get creative.
Yeah, some of the engineering firms, and Andrew may be able to help with this. I looked up, the fire stations are being planned right now. And from what I understand, the engineering firms, they got some that have local offices. Am I correct on that, Andrew? Do you remember?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question. Are you talking about engineering firm capacity? Edgy?
No, the ones that are giving out, their bids for the RFP for the fire stations.
Oh, yeah. So
I
we've,
think it's the local ones, that bid on that and.
that's correct. So actually, the firm that's doing the design work is out of Broomfield, up near Denver. We're also working with a construction management firm as well. That's also out of Denver. It happens to be. But there were a number of both local and regional engineering firms that had participated in that solicitation.
I just wanted to echo what your question was on the news there about there are available. We just would understand you just chose through bid processing the ones that came out of these other cities. It's okay, go ahead.
Okay. Anybody else?
I was gonna say, yeah, if there are any local engineering firms responding to RFPs, we'd love to take their names, and I'm happy to reach out and see if this might fit, again, be a fit for them.
You know what I did is if you just type it in the browser, Pueblo engineering firms, and put whatever you want, electric, structural grading, on those. And I was surprised because after you go to their website, you see they have their satellite office, or they're really a respectable, that may meet your goals. And that's how I found out some are actually bidding on ours. So,
Yeah, that's great.
So a thought along the lines with Laura with this presentation. You might think it's kind of a novice approach, but that's what we need in the community. And I don't know how much coverage we'll get. We certainly appreciate the chieftain being part of it. Doesn't look like anybody else has chimed in or showed up here. That we might look at this group putting on maybe a workshop, for a couple hours in an afternoon or an evening for the community. And to be able to do this, kind of repeat it, and by that time, maybe find some other resources, but maybe to help with that. But I think it's pretty important information to get out there for people to take advantage of if we want to reach that goal. And these are all tools to help do that. So thank you for doing this today.
Yes.
And I just, for any of you that are not necessarily a regular part of this group, you're welcome to stay. I just briefly want to mention that moving on, that we have these committees that we had kind of formalized, but we've kind of questioning the value of the committees now in terms of on your agenda, the listening of them. And I know there's some ideas about, and Edgy has an idea for a committee, but I want to make sure that since we're pushing 5 o'clock, I kind of like to know what it is we'd like to approach next month in our meeting. And that can be one of the focuses, could be the committees. But any of the other members that are present have any suggestions for a topic for next month, or a guest to join us, or?
Steve, if I can, just one more little point that didn't necessarily get covered today, but one other additional measure that the city's done lately in the last month. We've made all of the electrical chargers in the city for charging stations are now available free. So I think that aligns with several other entities around town. I think Black Hills has been available for free for a little bit. Public counties, I think, are still open, and I think CDOT's as well. But that just adds another 3 or 4 charging 3 stations right now, soon to be closer to 10. That'll be available for free for the next 2 years on the city there. So I just want to point that out.
Okay, thanks, Andy.
That didn't answer your question, though.
I thought we had planned on the December meeting being where we kind of discussed, how we move forward, kind of refine our plan, right? To what we want to address, because I think the next, with some of these federal bills coming through, that can mean that we could work on some other projects, or refocus things. So I was hoping that maybe the next meeting we could kind of be a strategy meeting to kind of define what's next.
Okay, I think we had talked about that. I just wanted to make sure that
Right.
that's still, because we have invitations from other individuals wanting to do presentations, and I just want to make sure that we can do that next year, which is not too far off. But I do think we need to reevaluate the makeup of this advisory group in terms of what we really, how we can divide and conquer. And since there has been concerns about participation and also the topics of the groups that formed. So why don't we do that next time? Laura, you're gonna be able to make next month, you think?
Yes.
So anybody want to volunteer to facilitate that discussion?
Well, if you want me to, I did that last time for when we originally did, for setting up the committees. And I did have a list that I'll email everybody, just some suggestions for me, and I'll give them real fast. You know, solar for city buildings, maybe that would be a committee. Energy efficiency for the city, looking at the low hanging things now, instead of waiting for the grant to come through. And replacement of low income gas property, low income people or low to mid income people. Another one would be the communications with the utilities and with the environmental people to, so maybe communications to get this back, and then that would always work with what you're saying. So we can set up a workshop, have that committee help set up that workshop so we can communicate. I think without us communicating all these benefits, I mean, I think that's a real good part. Now, we can't do like a person that works for the city where they could spend, 5 or 6 hours, running down these grants and moving towards it. But we could be there and participate in to reminding them of these different groups that may need help. And so anyone else that has any, but I'll try to email everyone, just my recommendations, and they're not because I think they should be what we do. It's to help us, to think and do a brainstorm. So when we come back on December, we have something to talk about.
I think that'd be good. I'd say that's a good idea, Edgy. If we could kind of think about it ahead of time, it'll make it be more efficient, because an hour is not a lot of time, right?
Yeah, and we could shoot some emails back and forth like we did with some of our community.
Excuse myself. All right, you guys later. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Like, what do you think about this? And Laura, we've had a lot of success, and John, of just saying, hey, what do you think of these? And someone says, what do you think of those? And I put them all together because that brainstorming seems to work really good when you got more time. We're sitting in the meeting for 15 minutes, let's brainstorm save the world, it's kind of like, well, I need more than 15 minutes.
Well, I mean, again, we can start. I mean, traditionally, December is a holiday month that a lot of people have plans. So, we could easily do a couple meetings in January after the holidays, but we could start the process in December, the first meeting in December. And not limit to, it has to be all done in one meeting.
Oh, no, I
Yeah.
didn't. Yeah, what I meant is that, if we can do a lot of the legwork, a lot of the brainstorming through communications, then we get here, we can, kind of start making some sense of these. And we can always change them, but, as you remember when we first set these up, there's some people out there, oh, I don't like those now. It's kind of like, well, let's just put them together, let's see how they work. We can always change them. We can change the names of them. We can change the people on whoever. We're not locked into that for a year. So the worst thing we want to do is stay on some sort of committee that it's not productive.
Yeah, and the other thing is that if you remember, for some of us that participated when the county was trying to form their energy advisory committee, that it kind of fell apart a little bit. And the fact now that it appears the county and the city are working together, that maybe we might want to present the idea of having just one advisory committee for both city and the county instead of duplicating.
One commission for both, or you're talking about a committee that sets
That's not a
on?
commission like we have here. It'd be the same commission for both the city and the county.
Or maybe we do like the city and council does, send one of their members one of their members or one of their committees to that meeting. Like the city council does, rather than just say, oh, we just let them, one committee control it all, because the
Right.
city's got a lot of different things and the county's got to deal with.
Well, no, I know, but also I think there's a possibility of too much duplication. And we need our city and county working together to really make this goal to be a reality in 2035. We can't be working independently. And a group like this, where the mayor and the county commissioners, they each select so many people for the committee. And actually, we have a number of people that live, eligible for both. So I'm just thinking that it would be good to have one force moving forward. And I think it's so important that the city and the county work together.
I like that idea. Maybe we should put that on the ballot, Minister, to have it combined, have the city and county of Pueblo like Denver, right?
Well, they tried that before.
I'm going to say that jokingly, but
Yeah, no,
there are some applicants
Yeah,
for
there
that.
was a group that researched that. It never was on the ballot, but there was a group that did that. So let's plan and we'll help develop that agenda. And any of you that have any input, but we're gonna let Edgy be the ones that facilitate that and kind of come up with that agenda item.
Yeah, I'll put everything together, email, and feel free to text me or any ideas or email me, and we'll just have something that we could kind of say, here's a bunch and what's everything.
And the whole meeting will be this will be the meeting.
I would suggest it, like Ken
Yeah.
suggested, it would be good, and we can also still have a roundtable discussion.
At the end, we can determine where we.
Yeah, and you may be able to give us some updates as the chair, if anything new and interesting coming up, like you always do.
Sure, okay.
I just wanted to comment on, I don't disagree. If the city and the county can get together and work on all these things, it would be great, because the synergy would be great. The county is doing a great job on energy efficiency, but they did have, an office that was dealing with this, and they disbanded it. So, the leadership of the county is important too, right? They,
Right.
We have this good leadership in the city. The county may have some deficits, okay?
But you did hear the mayor mention that they're still looking at a staff position that would be working with this group.
Yeah.
Not that we don't like.
Yeah. We don't need to
And
duplicate.
has another job to do.
Yeah, we don't need to duplicate stuff. Yes, yeah, that'd be.
Anybody else for the good of the good here?
Yeah.
I do have an update on the PV
Dan,
manufacturing.
hang on one second. We have
Okay.
one of our members here didn't get his hand up quick enough.
Okay,
Laura, you did such a great job of laying out.
Why don't you introduce yourself? there?
Yeah, I'm Dave Lucas, just recently joining here at the behest of Laura. Laura laid this out as there's really two paths here, the residential and the commercial. But it seems to educate, now the biggest thing is get the information out. So it seems like we need to connect or create a residential A, B, C, D, E. This is the steps you do, and then a commercial one. And so that's something that can be given to a business owner in some way, or getting it out to the residential owners as well. Because that's the important thing to make this whole thing really work money-wise. And I'm just imagining electricians, if you didn't have enough electricians down here to do the work, I have a feeling you'd have a few others flocking down here to do it as well.
I think they're gonna be busy everywhere. I do anticipate a shortage of everyone needed to make this happen. So I think workforce might be the biggest challenge to implementing this, actually, once people realize that they can take advantage of it.
And that's through almost every city, some of the other things that they're having problems, but if we can get our city, like what you're talking about, some programs for people here to take on that tax as a job, and encourage companies to work with the local educators on there, because I think they do have like a welding school. I think they have one at PCC still. That's a great example.
Yeah, and
we just need to get people to attend those schools.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
the
but you-
incentive.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to, like Laura brought up, we need to, and that could be a committee, you know, for us just to be a thorn in the side.
You know, the other piece to these IRA funds, right, which are great, is that, you know, Black Hills and San Isabel also have rebates, right, that add on top, that can stack on top of this too, right? So, you know, you need to have that thought out. I mean, you know, it's not an insurmountable thing. Like I think Laura says, getting it done is the problem, right? Getting somebody who's qualified to come in and do the work is where things slow down, right?
Yeah.
And that might be a role for us, is to kind of create a resource hub for our residents, specifically to say, here's where you go to learn about this, here's where you go to learn about the Black Hills rebates, the San Isabel rebates, here's where you go to learn about the state tax credits, about, you know, just, and again, I don't know what communications resources there are, requirements there are for maybe a city website, or if it should live somewhere else, but we could easily at minimum kind of help consolidate information online for people.
And that could be the city and there's an opportunity for city and the county to be posting the same thing on a website. So Ken, before I interrupt you, what else did you want to talk about there?
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a brief update on what we're now calling the let me make sure I say this right. I got it in my notes. Bear with me.
Okay, the clock's ticking.
So I'm part of the core team for the Pueblo Chirp Solar business, and this is a micro factory producing PV panels. Okay, we're working on a business plan. Of course, things like this IRA, and even there's some Department of Energy funds. There's monies available to help this along. So this may come about in 2023 pretty fast. We did some studies based on the key thing that makes this proposition really good is that the technology in the module controller of the PV panel is makes that panel operate so efficiently that you can lower the number of panels you need to operate, even though the panels are more expensive. Okay, so the panels coming out of this factory are more expensive because it's a labor-intensive nonprofit organization. So they focus on, you know, getting jobs to the community rather than the efficiencies of a manufacturing plant. This module, and so we've done some studies, and the payback is faster using these Chirp panels when you do a residential solar installation. And by the way, payback for rooftop solar in Pueblo in the Black Hills territory is 6 years and 6.5 years basically. So, you know, if you just wanted to pay back the value of those panels, that's the payback period. If you're looking at cash flow, the benefit is immediate from when you turn it on. So, you know, rooftop solar really does make a lot of sense, and it's good because it distributes that energy throughout the community, right? You don't have even though it's more expensive, you know, compared to utility scale, it takes a lot of stress off the distribution and transmission systems. So,
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just saying, you know, as we dig into this thing, it looks better and better. So that's a good sign.
All right. Well, Ken, thank you. And again, I want to thank Mr. Perez for being here and covering this. So thank you. And then for everyone else that joined in today. So we'll look forward to the next meeting in December. And Ed, you'll put that together, won't you?
Yes, I will.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Yeah, Laura.